This is
Colmena Fund.
I'm Suyen Barahona. I'm from Nicaragua, Central America, and I am actually currently living in exile in the United States. I'm a feminist. I've been involved in politics in the last almost 2 decades, and I've been involved in the struggle for democracy in Nicaragua. And I've been, I think, politically active almost all of my life. I've been involved in social movements and initially in the environmental movement in my home country, and also fighting for rights and democracy. But I got most involved in the political space, I would say much more heavily in 2006, as I was seeing the initial stages of the possible consolidation of a new dictatorship in my own country. And I was very much convened by women too. I'm part of the broader women's movement in the country. And I think after kind of long debates too around what needed to be done in that moment, I feel like, we came out with a very important conclusion, which was that it was really important to have belligerent, independent social movements. We need that to strengthen democracies, and an active civil society. But there's also a need for more women to be able to occupy formal political spaces if we wanted to move forward agendas and policies that could improve the lives of all citizens, not only of women, but of our communities, of our countries. And at that time also in my home country, there was the threat of the prohibition of therapeutic abortion in the country. And all of that led me to get much more involved. What I foresaw in that moment ended up happening in Nicaragua. A brutal dictatorship developed and consolidated, and started to dismantle democracy in the country. And for that, I have also suffered, persecution, and I was unjustly and arbitrarily imprisoned on 2 occasions. And the last time, after a wave of brutal government repression, I was incarcerated almost for 606 days, kept under conditions of torture, really, and separated from my son. I had a 4.5-year-old son at that time. And I eventually was released with 222 political prisoners. We were released, but we were basically banished and sent to the US. That was kind of the condition of the release. We were deported. And then we were also illegally deprived of our nationality. So my nationality was stripped away. I was erased from the legal registry. All my properties were seized. I don't exist, basically, or at least that's what the dictatorship would like in Nicaragua. And so that's why I'm actually in exile in the US. After my release, there was this opportunity of leading a new fund that could also support other women around the world in the global South. And I took that opportunity, and I'm now currently the executive director of this fund, a very nascent fund called the Colmena Fund, and it's really dedicated to accelerating the power of women in formal political spaces across the global South. And we, we've been very intentional in terms of using the word power in our mission and in our strapline, because we really think that, what we need is to nurture a collective of leaders that have political power to be able to work together, to uplift each other, to ensure that change is inclusive and transformative. And we are also focusing very much on supporting women who are coming from most marginalized experiences, communities, because for us, that's also the way that we can really contribute to an inclusive democracy. And we are, as a fund, we're catalyzing philanthropic support. We feel that there's a need to really support in terms of funding, and increase the funding and the collaboration towards women's political leadership, but also we are providing funding to support partner organizations that are nurturing these democratic and human rights value aligned with women's political leadership, and also supporting to strengthen an enabling environment to accelerate the power of women political leaders. And of course, this whole lived experience in politics has definitely, I think, I've brought that to this fund, that experience, and I'm very humbled and privileged to be part of an initiative and in a fund that's really aiming to support women in the global South who are dealing with tremendous barriers. And the fund is also it's comprised of other women. Are part of our steering committee are other women with lived experience in politics who have faced those challenges, the barriers of lack of funding, the barriers of cultural norms that see women differently, and that and the violence and sometimes the isolation that women political leaders are facing. So I think I bring that lived experience, and those members of the steering committee also who have been former vice presidents or the first Afro-descendant, vice president, for example, in Latin America, the case of Epsi Campbell, or Humsile Mambo, who's former deputy of president of South Africa, and who struggled against apartheid, and Maria Leonor Gerona, also a former vice president of the Philippines, and that directly also really has combated authoritarianism and corruption. So it's a mix of women also who have experience in philanthropy, such as Sumaya Islam or Latanya Map or Binay Noroji. And we bring that, I think that's a lived experience, and the empathy, and then the understanding of the barriers that women in politics are facing, and that the journey that needs really accompaniment and support from the ecosystem. We definitely feel like there's a need to continue supporting initiatives that are strengthening and elevating the technical capacities of women political leaders. That is definitely working. The mentorship and accompaniment and the peer-to-peer learning, we feel like those are also strategies that women think are very effective and very important. Given the heightened context of violence, there's a huge need across regions. That's kind of the number one, barrier that women are facing, is the issue of violence and harassment and disinformation. So we feel that organizations and initiatives that are really working in supporting and preventing violence, but also supporting kind of the holistic protection of women in politics is very, very important. There's really a big gap. They're very alone in that context that they live, and women are experiencing harassment in their communities, the violence in their communities, digital violence in their political parties, also in the spaces that they exercise that leadership. So we feel that it's important to also play a role of convening, and we've been really trying to do that very intentionally at the fund. There's a need to bring together different sectors across regions too, who are in order to generate a more enabling environment and to overcome sometimes the silos that we're seeing. So we're being very intentional in that as we also inform our call for proposals and our initiatives. And we feel like there's a real need to change narratives around women's political leadership and the stereotypes that exist, and to amplify really the stories of these women leaders and how, you know, they can be human rights activists, the transformative work that they're doing, the initiatives that are serving whole communities and whole countries. And we feel like there's a need to really elevate those stories, so that also more women are able to see themselves in these positions and really be able to see the transformative work that they're carrying out. It's especially we want to elevate leadership that has been marginalized in many countries. We feel that we've heard once and again that there's a need also for flexibility and kind of agile resource mobilization, and that nurturing leadership takes time, and that resourcing organizations, and in particular organizations that are led by people from marginalized background, which is what we are doing too, in support of women in politics that are connected to movements and constituents. It's a long-term process, and that you need time and you need more long-term support. So we feel that those strategies are quite important. And also really supporting organizations nurturing Afro-descendant women leaders or LGBTQ political leaders, young leaders around regions, or creating safe and empowering spaces, to end violence, for example. Those are some of the initiatives that we really are excited to continue supporting, because we feel that they're very necessary if we want to really advance women's political leadership. I think that in the midst of crisis, there are always opportunities. And we have to say that, we are in a context of that's very challenging, of backlash, of reversals, of less resources that are being made available towards gender equality and to advance women's leadership. And I think these moments of challenges around the world are also give us a huge opportunity for more collaboration across sectors, and to kind of break away with some of those silos that I was mentioning, and really coming together of like-minded groups and sectors and movements and actual women leaders to strategize on how we can really support to reduce the barriers and really elevate the importance of women entering the political space. I think we've seen, there's a lot of stereotypes, and there's a lot of also discredit towards politics, towards the political space, and the best people sometimes are being left out and out of this political space. But so I think, this current moment of also leadership crisis around the world, it really elevate the need for more women who hold certain values that are really committed to democracy, to human rights, to support them in their leadership journey, and to be able to occupy those spaces, and to support them to really deliver on transformative agendas. So I think, this context of crisis is also allowing us to see some of the gaps, and to rethink more creatively on how to generate more supportive structures, and also the need for more collaboration among those of us in the ecosystem, to really strengthen the work. We need to reimagine leadership, and we are really about nurturing leadership, feminist leadership that really can also support in transforming power dynamics, so that we can really create countries and communities and societies that are really more just, more democratic. And so when we say that part of the mission is to really accelerate the power, it's because we are talking about transforming power dynamics, and I think thinking about leadership in a different way, a leadership that's inclusive, a leadership that is non-oppressive, a leadership that's really moving forward agendas to transform for equality, and for us to all be able to enjoy our human rights, and so I think that's the first thing, it's reimagining leadership, but also reimagining democracy in itself. And that's why we're also very much concentrating in supporting women who are coming from more marginalized backgrounds, because we are seeing, through around the world that in many occasions, women are at the forefront, is struggling for inclusivity and for democracy, for justice, and then they're left aside too. So, we need more of that women's leadership also, to be collaborative, to be transparent, to really nurture democracies that are accountable to its citizens, and we're reimagining democracies where women are able to participate without being threatened to be in jail, or to be killed, or to be raped, or to be harassed, So we really are talking about a more inclusive, fair, and democracies where we can really enjoy our full human rights. Democracy is about people being able to fulfill their, to have their human rights be respected. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing people to thrive socially, culturally, economically. It's about generating spaces for people to be able to be heard, to participate, and to be allowed to be different too, and that celebrates diversity. Democracy is about equality in generating societies that are just and filled with opportunities for all. We really are trying to bring together different sectors and different networks, and we have an important opportunity, I think, right now. Those of us in philanthropy, especially to be able to collaborate, so that we're not reinventing the wheel, but that we really are connecting in a way that we're filling the different gaps. And I think that's our aim, like really working with others in the ecosystem so that with limited resources, we can attend and assist and really uplift those leaderships that are most marginalized, and really also bring resources to areas where maybe there's most need too in this critical time. I think we have the challenge of also thinking more of the long term. Like I said, it's not about just stepping in for the very short term, and especially in thinking about women's political leadership just with very short term, kind of entry point. But there's, I think, what organizations, movements, and the leaders themselves are saying is that, we need support for the different parts of the journey. And I think philanthropy can really come together to generate a more enabling environment. I know that some are working on digital violence, some are working on youth, and all of that can come together. Human rights, I think we can all come together to really strategize and provide kind of more holistic support than what is being elevated right now. And I think we need to come together to advocate globally too, and in different regional spaces and national spaces on how, if we really are about strengthening human rights and democracy, we need to support women, and we need to assure that they are in these decision-making spaces, really pushing forward transformative agendas. In my darkest, I think, moments and my most challenging moments, the collective of women and the solidarity of women have been, of my sisters, of my feminist sisters around the world when I was incarcerated, always filled me with strength and hope. And so I think a message is also never to underestimate, that power within yourself, but also the power of solidarity within the collective of women. And so that's why we've intentionally named this fund the Colmena Fund, which in Spanish means hive, because it is about celebrating the power of community, of women political leaders. Leadership can be a very isolating and lonely journey, but we really are about nurturing a more of a collective power and collective communities of women political leaders to be able to support each other along the way. I think some of the stories and the women that are featured and the partners that are featured in this series have navigated the most challenging context and experience, and they've continued throughout their lives they've continued in the struggle, and they've opened paths for other women. They've helped to uplift other women. They have been examples of how, when we work collectively, we can really also move forward. And they've navigated racism, violence, discrimination, all the challenges, authoritarianism, dictatorships, and they've continued to come out of all of those experiences and that struggle, remaining hopeful. So I think there's also so much to learn from them, their strategies to be able to continue persisting but yet remain optimistic and hopeful in the midst of challenging times. I think so. I think these are trailblazers, powerful women from which we can learn, especially in these critical moments around the world, and from which we can really draw inspiration from. When you listen to these stories, I think they will really challenge you to think about transformative leadership, but the power of solidarity, the power of the collective, the power of the hive, and how when we are able to really leverage those networks across the democracy and the feminist movements, and we're able to nurture that collective leadership, we can really transform the world. And I hope that people leave inspired by these voices, by their courage, by their authenticity, and by their struggle, because they have been really an example of a different world. No.
This is Colmena Fund.